And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to High Vibe Conversations. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro. With me today are Dorit Carlson, Jenny Langren, and Linda Vetrus Nichols. And today we'll be talking all about the power of humor. Now, before we get into it, I do want to remind you that this is a safe space to share and connect with us. We'll be sharing some of our experiences and as we navigate our life journeys, and we hope that you will feel comfortable and safe to share with us as well. So the comments are open if you feel like inserting your thoughts in into the chat, either on the live or on the replay. Or if you want to do it more privately, then feel free to connect with us wherever you can find us, preferably on LinkedIn, because that's where we are streaming primarily. But other platforms are good too. And before I ramble on and on about that, let's dive into the topic at hand. Jenny, I'm coming over to you. The power of humor. What's coming up for you today?
Actually, there were so many angles to this topic for me as I was leaning into it before joining you. One is that when I meet a person who is connected with their joy and happiness and is ready to share that with others, that makes me feel safe because it tells me that this person is accepting him or herself and is not outsourcing their sense of self to other people, always approving or always accepting. It's coming from them, that they're enjoying themselves and they're enjoying their life, and of course not being inconsiderate, but it just gives me that feel of just comfort, like this person is comfortable in their own company, and that makes me feel comfortable too. So I like that. And then there was this quote from a Swedish author that came to mind. That's actually Astrid Lindgren, the author of the children's books, Pippi Longstocking, for example. She would always talk about how as we grow up, we learn how to be responsible and we learn how to be adults, but we seldom speak of how we forget the ability to play. And that's when I started thinking about that, I started giving myself permission to play and get in touch with the child in me. You know, we carry every age inside of us, and start coloring outside of the lines. Stop worrying so much about being perfect and trying to do things differently, and really allow myself to practice not perfect. And I do that very intentionally. And sometimes I send out emails and I don't spell check. I just make sure that the name that I'm sending it to is correct. And then it's just, just letting go and having, just enjoying the connection and enjoying the moment and coloring outside of the lines. I think there are different ways for us to do that and be playful and share every side of us with other people. And as a leader, we do have everything inside of ourselves. Duality makes us think that, if someone was humorous one time, then that's all they are. But the truth is we have everything inside of us, and we can connect with that and explore that side, and then we can explore other sides. And that doesn't mean that we're not caring or considerate with the people around us. So, so much coming in. Thank you, Shel.
So we've often, thank you, Jenny. We've also often heard the saying, laughter is the best medicine. And like, so that was what was coming up for me as you were talking about getting back to like our childhood sense of like playfulness and humor. But I was also thinking about it through the lens of like laughter and humor can also be used as a defense mechanism. And while I love laughing and like love to have those silly moments, I also recognize that in the past I have used humor as a shield. Um, sometimes in a combative way, with either like passive aggressiveness or even sarcasm. I've used it to deflect certain situations. And I've also used humor to like uh, point out things about myself, even, or like joke about myself before anybody, because if I pointed out something that I'm feeling uncomfortable about, even if I, rather than projecting somebody else, like if I get it out first, then it's okay if somebody else makes fun of me for it, or if somebody else calls it out because I'm pointing out the humor in it. So I've used humor in a not necessarily positive way in my past, and realizing that allows me to think about how I could bring more positivity to it in the future, and how I could let go of some of that passiveness and the aggression and the shielding, to make it a more happy and playful space that is more inviting and allows people to see me more completely, instead of having some walls up like I previously did. So thank you for bringing all of that to my attention, even if that's not directly what you were sharing. Before I continue on, I want to welcome Stina Marie to this conversation. Thank you, Stina, for joining us today. We're talking all about the power of humor. I'm going to bounce right up to my right. I hope it's your right on your screen, to Dorit. Or actually, I'm not going to, because I saw Linda flash her mic, or what seemed like she flashed her mic. So I'm going to bounce back down to the bottom right of my screen. Linda, what's coming up for you when we talk about the power of humor?
Yeah, I think you were bringing Steen on when I unclicked it. Well, you're talking about basically self-deprecating humor, and kind of like cutting yourself down, if you will. And self-deprecating humor was a really big thing in the day, and now it's kind of frowned on. And all of it just brings me to how, like, well, Jenny and I were talking about in Sweden, it's like not about calling attention to yourself, it's just not too much, not too little. And then I think about, like, in Australia, if you call attention to yourself, um, you're called a tall poppy. And the idea of false humility is to be cutting yourself down and always, pointing out all the wonderful things about others. And so when I get a compliment, I do my best to say thank you first, and then edify, or whatever the word would be. I guess edify. I used to think edify was building people up, but it's actually teaching people. So then say something about the other person that I like, or thank them as well, or whatever. So as we all do our inner work, which COVID definitely got us all really going within it, just in order to mentally survive. And Shell, that's your book, right? Loving yourself isn't selfish. So having that love, so you can have true humility and not deprecating humor. That's kind of all what came up for me.
Thank you, Linda. I never thought about humor from the lens of my book. Honestly, like maybe that's in the part two, that I've been, um, not so quietly talking about, over the last few weeks. But yeah, there's something there to uncovering that other part of ourselves that's been hidden away for so long. And to what I said before about using it as a shield, using humor as a shield, that did allow me to protect myself and feel safe when I didn't feel supported and safe around other people. But being able to take it, as I said, take down that wall and show people a more silly side of me. Like when I'm being goofy and dancing on the screen, like that's my true nature. Like that is me bringing my humor and my goofiness, even if it just looks like I'm working through some energy or like other things. Like it's just the fact that it's spewing to and like bubbling over to come out. It's there. That shield is no longer there. Like it's gone, and I don't want it to come back. But like I acknowledge that it was once there and could come back again if I'm not intentional with how I use it and play around with it. So thank you, Linda, for expanding on the power of humor. Now I'm coming up to you, Dorit. What's coming up for you as we talk about the power of humor?
Well, a lot is coming up for me too. Everything from I was blessed to grow up in a family with a horrible sense of humor. So we were laughing at things that no one else would understand, and we had so much fun with it. My mom and dad, they are in their mid 80s now. They are still as goofy and silly and the driest puns you can ever imagine, and people are just like, what? And we're in tears, you know. So and growing up, when I was bullied a lot, my mom taught me how to use it like as my defense, because I was little and I was overweight, so I couldn't fight back as much. So my defense was when they were calling me names or like things like that, I kind of flipped it around and I made them look stupid. So they would kind of think twice about saying things about me because everyone was laughing at them afterwards, you know? So just things like that. I've always had humor close. I use it whenever I can, as you might have noticed, because it is me. But I've found more often than not in my clients that they have kind of put a lid on their humor, because when we go and take a dive into their subconscious, they find little episodes of being told to kind of grow up, stop goofing around. When they went to school, it was like, sit down, do your work. All that kind of stuff has kind of made them understand that if you're going to be an adult and going to be taken seriously, you have to stop being funny and laughing. and that's so not true. You can be both, but they needed to kind of face that and see that, oh wow, I really took that seriously and cut that completely out because I so wanted to be an adult, and I thought that I had to become super serious to do that. And just having that revelation in a way has opened up a lot for them, and they get the confidence to be that playful, goofy person that they were when they were kids. So just letting themselves, well, allowing themselves to let that little goofy kid out again is enriching the lives. I don't know what I would do without humor. That would be a gray, dull world. Yeah.
Thank you, Dorit, for sharing. It would be a gray, dull world without humor in our lives. And I just before the call, I was telling you how much you were glowing, and we were having a joke about it. So that's humor right there, that we can just find it in all different pockets and moments, and share it with others. So thank you, Stina. I'm coming down to your corner of the screen right now. What's coming up for you when we're talking about the power of humor?
I analogy lesson because I was curious where the word humor came from. I was talking about humility, probably roots or something. And what I found was a little unexpected. Humors come from, the word actually comes from when they thought that the body was for these different kind of elements of the body. It loosely to me corresponds with, earth, water, fire kind of idea where the blood, there's two different vials that kind of coordinate different elements.
Stina, we're really having a hard time hearing you. You're going, I don't know. You're going in and out.
Okay, let me get, I'm going to different headphones. Is this better? Okay. I saw you shaking your head. I thought you were just telling me I was wrong. I was like, no, I just read it. I'm pretty sure this is right. Okay, so I'll start over. There we go. Good sense of humor. Okay, so the humors are these four parts of the body that they saw: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. And they thought that if you balanced your humors, then your physical disposition and your mood would be of a certain quality. And as I was reading about it, I was like, this is kind of reflective of the earth, air, water, fire. Every culture has had some way that we perceive how do we create balance in the body, even before we could really dig into things with, science. There was still science, there was still observation. And that the word humor, as in something kind of amusing, doesn't come from until quite a bit later on. And I was like, I think that my kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Analysis of that assessment was, so when somebody was in good humors, it was yeah, if someone was happy, if someone was healthy, if they were full of life, if they were, vibrant, you would probably have said that was their humors. And when you say to someone hey, humor me for a second, that word as a verb comes from this idea of complying with someone else's disposition. So then there's a joining with someone in their mood, right? You're going to humor them. You're going to pay attention. You're going to engage in what they're saying. So I thought that was really interesting, that idea of your mood and balance, and then also joining with someone else. Because when we say, oh, so-and-so's got a great sense of humor, that tells you a lot about a person and how agreeable they want to be with others, right? If they want to be amused and full of joy and entertained, or if someone has a sense of humor that you don't like, it can actually be kind of insulting, or just it just doesn't land. Even Dort, what you were saying, when there's a joke that's just other people are like, what is that? So it's interesting how different we can be in our sense of humor as well. And I think it's a really powerful connector in relationships when you have the same sense of humor. I think about people sending each other memes or Instagram reels, I do with my friends. And it's I'll see something funny and I'll think of a specific person. I'm this matches their our shared sense of humor, right? This is where our kind of Venn diagrams of humor overlap. And it creates that connection, and you have a shared experience of delight and amusement. And that does bring a lightness to life, and it does color your world, because it reminds us that we don't have to be so literal and so serious and so hard on ourselves. We can lighten the mood with humor. And there's really nothing better than learning to laugh at yourself and kind of crack up at little things. And Yeah, so I thought that was interesting to think about, like, the history of the word. So
I didn't even realize that that's where the word came from. Um, but it kind of gives us a more complete picture of the word humor and how we use it even when we don't may not realize that we're attributing it to certain parts of our body or our mindset. And to your point about like being able to share that with other people, whether you're memeing them and lightening the mood in a shared way that like you can both appreciate. Um, Lost my thought. I'll dial it back for a second. Um, when you can share that with somebody and lighten the mood in that way, it also allows you to have that sense of feeling seen, and like it's a more complete safe feeling. It's a more like sec- secureness that like may or may not be there if you don't have pockets of moments in time where you can share those inside jokes or like take the pressure off and have that with somebody or multiple people. um, what was also coming up for me as you were taking us through the history, the etymology of humor, was noticing that in my own like Im- immediate like family unit right now, there's a lot of humor that doesn't land well with me. And even if it's not directed toward me, it like could be something that was seen on TV, and like then there's a comment made about something like poking fun, or it could be about like a family member, a friend, somebody that's not even present to defend themselves. And I use the words to defend that they're not there to defend themselves, because sometimes when people use humor, um, this comes back to what Dorit was sharing earlier about how, feeling bullied and then turning it back on the other person. It, when it's at somebody else's expense, it often doesn't land right for me, even if it's not at being something's not being poked at for me. It's almost like I can empathize and sympathize with the other person that's not there to defend themselves, and I find myself being like, "Hey, guys, like that's okay right now in this safe space between us, but please don't let that leave this room. Like, please don't ever say that outside of here, because you're going to make somebody else feel uncomfortable, or they don't know you like that to have it land a certain way, and other people might not appreciate it or take it in that lighthearted, fun sense." So being able to come back to what Stina was saying about knowing or having that feeling of like, I could share this thing with this other person and I know they'll appreciate it because we're on that same trajectory. Knowing it's almost like being able to read the room and navigate it that way, because some jokes are inside jokes. They're not meant for everybody to see. So thank you for bringing all those things to the forefront. And for helping us connect the dots back around to the beginnings of this conversation, the power of humor. We've shared so many insights today, and experiences of our own that are hopefully inspiring for you to share as your journey as well. If you'd like more of these high vibe conversations, we invite you to keep coming back. Please make sure to follow us wherever you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, if you're there. But also, we just want to hear from you. We want to know that you feel safe and supported. So let us know your thoughts. We are here for you. And until next time, we will say bye for now. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.